Good morning, and thank you for letting me speak to you across the miles about my Holocaust memories. I want to extend my appreciation to Rabbi Shmuel Katzman for the privilege of sharing my story with you, and send warm greetings to Den Haag, a beautiful city close to my heart. Over the years, I've often come to The Hague, never without visiting dearest of friends who I consider family, Reinhold and Nanny Simon. In the late spring of 1945, less than a month after returning to Amsterdam from Bergen Belsen and Tröbitz, and now almost 8 years old, Reinhold's parents invited me to stay for a few days in their lovely home in Deventer. I felt I'd been transported to a castle in a fairy tale. There were beautiful flowers on the table and wonderful things to eat. A bed that was clean and comfortable. There was light, there was warmth, there was beauty, there was tranquility, there was laughter. For me, it was nothing less than a magician at work after living for almost 2 years in a world of terror, filth, and death. These precious memories of Den Haag and Deventer remain clear and bright to this day. I had survived, and here was a glimpse of what life could be, filled with humanity rather than horror. Now let me quickly fill in some of the missing pieces. I must begin by saying I'm always reluctant to talk in public about my childhood experience in the Holocaust, how it was, and what it did. To this day, nothing I can say can do justice to what still remains to me as an unfathomable nightmare. My poor words can never sufficiently honor or grace the millions of children, mothers, fathers, and other innocents whose lives were so brutally cut short. Why did they die, and why did I survive? I have not and never will find an adequate answer to this painful question. And so it remains more comfortable for me to remember and honor those who were lost in a more personal way, and try to lead my life the best I can, always realizing I was blessed, I was saved. Not only was I saved, my whole family survived the Holocaust, my mother, my father, and my twin brother. According to available records, my brother and I are the only surviving twins of the Holocaust. In my heart and mind, my family's survival was nothing less than a miracle. And how do you really talk about a miracle and make it sound believable? My parents were born in Germany and tried to escape the growing stranglehold of Hitler by coming to Amsterdam in the fall of 1936. My brother and I were born in January 1938. In May of 1940, Germany invaded the Netherlands. My parents tried valiantly to find some escape, England, Switzerland, but all doors were already closing. Going into hiding was not a very realistic option at a time when silence was a prerequisite for not getting caught. Housing 2 toddlers and their parents brought with it great risk. My parents investigated the possibility of finding a safe place for us, perhaps as far away as Indonesia, a separation they could not imagine. It was decided we would all stay together. Whatever was in store, we would endure it hand in hand. Even though I was only 5 years old, I vividly remember the night we were picked up on July 23, 1943. I was both fascinated and terribly scared by the intruders and their uniforms, their shiny boots, buttons, and helmets, and particularly the sounds of those boots as they walked through our bedroom and living space. My parents had a tradition of each night putting candies in a Dutch shoe my brother and I kept at the end of our beds, sweets that we were always delighted to discover in the morning when we got up. As I was quickly getting dressed, I asked my mother whether I could take the candies in my shoe. The SS officer shouted at us to hurry, but as we left our apartment, my mother slipped the candies into my coat. a coat I would wear every day for the next year and a half. We were taken to Westerbork, and then 7 months later, on February 15th, 1944, deported to Bergen Belsen, in cattle cars so full one could hardly breathe, and without food, water, or latrines. That awful day marked my parents' 10th wedding anniversary. Although Belsen was not an extermination camp, it was a living hell of death, starvation, constant beatings, and disease. Years later, I learned that the Nazis figured out with mathematical precision how long it would take for human beings to perish under hard labor and starvation. Just like the punctuality of the trains and the completeness of each and every list to the death camps, the Nazis kept their eyes constantly on their ultimate goal, the total extinction of European Jewry by a certain day. In Bergen Belsen, the Nazis estimated that children could survive between 6 and 8 weeks. Now, sitting here at the ripe old age of 82, I can say my brother and I beat the odds. What else do I remember? My brother and I made up our own secret language. We call it hula flu. I will forever remember our 6th birthday, when my brother and I each received half a sandwich with butter and chocolate sprinkles, hagelslacht. It was our greatest birthday present ever. My brother and I ate a few crumbs every night, so the sandwich would last and last. My father had sold his wedding ring to make this wonderful gift possible. But there was also horrific memories, too awful to recall. My brother and I learned to count by tallying up the dead bodies piled up in front of our barrack each morning. It was only when I came to America that I realized that not everyone that dies is thrown in a pit like a discarded animal. In April of 1945, near the war's end, our family was put on what became known as the Lost Train, 50 cattle cars holding 2,500 sick and starving Jews. The train is undetected for 2 weeks and was finally liberated by Russian troops outside the village of Tröbitz in eastern Germany. 675 of its passengers died along the way and were left along the tracks. When there was time, there was a quick burial. It was at one of those burials along the tracks that I first heard the Shema Yisrael and Hatikva. The memory and tragedy of that setting still haunts me. We came to America in 1947. I was 9 years old, never had a day of school, but ready to start life anew. Before I close, I want to share with you 2 recent events that shed further light on my family's journey. A question that was never adequately answered for me was, how did our family end up in Bergen Belsen when almost all families with young children were quickly dispatched to extermination camps, most of them to Auschwitz? Of the 103 trains that left Westerbork for the east, only 9 went to Bergen Belsen, where there was at least some chance of survival. It was only 2 years ago that I discovered my family had obtained forged Paraguayan passports, documents that surely helped save our lives, because Jews holding those passports were designated as potential exchange prisoners for Germans captured behind enemy lines. The champion of this story was a Polish diplomat, Konstantin Wukicki, who worked in the Polish consulate in Switzerland during the war and risked his life forging passports for Jews in Poland as well as in Belgium and Holland. It was only in 2018 that the list of those who were the beneficiaries of Wukicki's courage and humanity came to light. Wukicki died in a pauper's grave, but on October 10, 2018, at a ceremony in Bern, Switzerland, that I attended, he received his deserved hero's honors by the President of Poland. Another warm story, a delightful story, was in April, I wrote an essay on memories of the Holocaust as a young child and the world of COVID-19. And the essay was published on April 15th in the Los Angeles Times. In the article, there was a picture of my brother and I in Dutch costume. And someone saw the article, someone in California saw the article, and immediately recognized those costumes and was sure that they had come from a little fishing village in Holland, in central Holland, called Urk. We had had a wonderful nanny, a member of our family, and she always wore traditional costume and always wanted us to have such an outfit ourselves. And so she brought it to the house, and we had actually a famous photographer take those pictures. In any case, the war came, our nanny was no longer. We never remembered her name, and we never remembered actually the details of those Dutch costumes. But the person who read my op-ed piece contacted her family in Urk and discovered that our costumes had come from that very village and that our nanny had come from that village. There was a policeman in the town and also the local historian who within a week revealed to us all the places we had lived before the war, after the war, told us the name of the nanny, her family, and wonderful missing pieces of our puzzle. The pictures these pictures of the Dutch costumes were miraculously saved, and we received them after the war. So it always reveals to me that history moves on, and sometimes there are lovely aspects to a story of such great loss and horror. So in closing, I want to say, my life has been full and blessed in countless ways. I never go through a day without thinking about the miracle of our survival, the heroism of my parents, and having a twin brother, Stephen Hess, at my side. I live in gratitude, but always with the knowledge and also the burden that 6 million others did not have my luck and deserved the same grace. Thank you.